everybody. Today, Hani is going to read Matilda by Roald Dahl and illustrated by Quentin Blake. Chapter 10 Throwing the Hammer. The nice thing about Matilda was that if you had met her, casually had talked to her, you would have thought she was a perfectly normal 5.5-year-old child. She displayed almost no outward signs of her brilliance, and she never showed off. This is a very sensible and quiet little girl, you have said to yourself. And unless about literature or mathematics, and unless for some reason you had started a discussion with her about literature or mathematics, you would have never known the extent of her brain power. It was therefore easy for Matilda to make friends with other children. All those in her class liked her. They knew, of course, she was clever because they heard her being questioned by Miss Hani on the first day of term. And they know also that she was allowed to sit quietly with a book during lessons and not pay attention to the teacher. But children of their age do not search deeply for reasons. They were far too wrapped up in their own small struggles to worry over much about what others are doing and why. Among Matilda's newfound friends was the girl called Lavender. From the first day of term, the two of them started wandering round together during the morning break and the lunch hour. Lavender was expansionally small for her age. A skinny little nymph with a deep brown eyes and a dark hair was cut in fragile around her forehead. Matilda liked her because she was gauzy and adventurous. She liked Matilda for exactly the same reasons. Before the first week of term was up, awesome tales about the headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, began to filter around the newcomers. Matilda and Lavender, standing in a corner of the playground during a morning break on their third day, were approached by a rugged 10-year-old with a boil on her nose, called Hortensia. New scum, I suppose, Hortensia said to them, looking down from her great height. She was eating from an extra-large bag of potato crisps and digging the stuff out in handfuls. "Welcome to Bristol," she added, spraying the bits of crisps like a mouth like snowflakes. The two tiny ones, confronted by this giant, kept a watchful silence. "Have you met the Trunchbull yet?" Hortensia asked. "We've seen her at prayers," Lavender said, "but we haven't met her." "You've got a treat coming to you," Hortensia said. "She hates very small children. She therefore lost the bottom class and everyone in it. She thinks 5-year-olds are grubs and haven't yet hatched out." In went another fistful of crumbs, and when she spoke again, out spread the crumbs. "If you survive your first year, you may manage to live through the rest of your time here. But many don't survive. They get carried out of stretchers screaming. I've seen it often." Hortensia paused to observe the effect these remarks were having on the two teacher ones. "Not very much. They seem pretty cool." So the large one decided to regale them with further information. "I suppose you know the Trunchbull has a lock-up cupboard in a private quarters called the Chalky. Have you heard about Chalky?" Matilda and Lavender shook their heads and continued to gaze up at the giant. Being very small, they were inclined to mistrust any creature that was larger than they were, especially senior girls. "The Chalky," Hortensia went on, "is a very tall but very narrow cupboard. The floor is only 10 inches square, so you can't sit down or squat in it. You have to stand. and their walls are made of cement with bits of broken glass sticking out all over, so you can't lean against them. You have to stand more or less attention all the time when you get locked in there. It's terrible. Can't you lean against the door? Matilda asked. Don't be daft, Hortensia said. The door's got thousands of sharp, spiky nails sticking out of it. They've been hammered through the outside, probably by the Trunchbull herself. Have you ever been in there? Lavender asked. My first time I was in there 6 times, Hortensia said. Twice for a whole day and other times for 2 hours each. But 2 hours is quite enough. It's pitch dark and you have to stand up dead straight and you wobble and you all spike in either the glass or the words or the nails on the doors. Why were you put in? Matilda asked. What have you done? The first time, Hortensia said, I poured half a tin of golden syrup on the seat of the chair and the Trunchbull was going to sit at prayers. It was wonderful. When she lowered herself into the chair, there was a loud squelching noise similar to by a hippopotamus squelching noise when lowering its foot into the mud of the banks of the Limpopo River. But you're too small and stupid to have you read just those stories, aren't you? I've read them, Matilda said. You're a liar, Hortensia said amiably. You can't even read yet, but no matter. So when the Trunchbull sat down on the golden syrup, the squelch was beautiful. And when she jumped up again, the chair sort of stuck up to the came up with her for a few seconds until the thick syrup slowly came unstuck. Then she clasped her hands to the seat of the breeches and both hands covered in the muck. You have heard her bellow. But how did you know it was you? Lavender asked. A little cold oily bug whistle sneaked on me, Hortensia said. I knocked in front teeth out. And the Trunchbull put you in the chalky for a whole day? Matilda asked, gulping. All day long, Hortensia said. I was over my rocker when she let me out. I was babbling like an idiot. What were the other things did you get put in the chalky? Oh, I can't remember them all now, Hortensia said. She spoke with her air of old warrior who had been so many battles with bravery had become commonplace. It's all so long ago, she added, stuffing more crisps into her mouth. Oh yes, I can remember one. Here's what happened. I chose a time when I knew the Trunchbull was out of the way teaching sixth formers. I put on my hand and asked to go to the box. But instead of going there, I sneaked into the Trunchbull's room. And after a speedy search, I found a drawer where kept all her gym sneakers. Go on, Matilda said, self-front. What happened next? I sent away the post, you see, for this very powerful itching powder, Hortensia said. It cost me 50 pence a packet and was called a skin scorcher. The label said it was made from the powdered tip of deadly snakes, and it was gardened to raise the wild side of walnuts on your skin. So I sprinkled this stuff inside every pair of the sneakers in the drawer. Then I folded them all up again carefully. Hortensia paused to cram more crisps into her mouth. Did it work? Lavender asked. Well, Hortensia said, a few days later during prayers, the Trunchbull suddenly began scratching herself like mad down below. Aha, I said to myself. Here we go. She's changed for gym already. It was pretty wonderful to be sitting there watching it all and knowing I was the only person in the whole school who realized exactly what was going inside the Trunchbull's pants. And I felt safe too. I knew I couldn't get caught, and the scratching got worse. She couldn't stop. She must have known she was a wasp's nest down there. And then, right in the middle of the Lord's Prayer, she left them and grabbed her bottom and rushed out of the room. Both Matilda and Lavender were enthralled. It was quite clear to them they were at that moment standing in the presence of Master. They were somebody who had brought the art of surgery to the highest point of the perfection, somebody, moreover, who was willing to risk life and limb to pursuit over calling. They gazed in wonder of this goddess, and suddenly even the boil on her nose was no longer a blemish but a badge of courage. "But how did you catch you that time?" Lavender asked, breathless with wonder. "She didn't," Hortensia said, "but I got a day in the chalky just the same." "Why?" they both asked. "The Trunchbull," Hortensia said, "had a nasty habit of guessing. When she doesn't know who the culprit is, she makes a guess at it. When the trouble is, she's often right. I was the prime suspect this time because the golden shiver job, and although I know she didn't have any proof, nothing I said made any difference. I kept shouting, 'How could I done it, Miss Trunchbull? I didn't even you kept spare sneakers at school. I don't even know that itching powder is. I've never heard of it, but the lying didn't help me in spite of the great performance I put on. The Trunchbull simply grabbed me by one ear and rushed to the chalky at the double and threw me inside and locked the door. That was my second all-day stretch. It was awesome torture. I spiked and cut all over when I came out. It's like a war," Matilda said, overawed. "You're done right, it's like a war," Hortensia cried, "and the costs are terrific. They're all critters, and the gallant army fighting for our lives were hardly any weapons at all with the Trunchbull in the Prince of Darkness, the foul serpent, the fury dragon with all the weapons in her command. It's a tough life. We all have to try to support each other." "You can rely on us," Lavender said, making her height of 3 feet 2 inches stretch as tall as possible. "No, I can't," Hortensia said. "You're only shrimps. But you never know. You may find a use for you one day in some undercover job." "Tell us just a little bit more of what she does," Matilda said. "Please do." "I mustn't frighten up before you have been awake," Hortensia said. "You won't," Lavender said. "We may be small, but we're quite tough." "Listen to this then," Hortensia said. "Only yesterday the Trunchbull caught a boy called Julius Rodwinkle eating Lipperqueer outside during the school picture lesson, and she simply picked him up by the arm and flung him clear of the open classroom window. Our classroom is one floor up, and we saw Julius Rodwinkle go sailing out over the garden like a frisbee and landing like a thump in the middle of the lectures. Then the Trunchbull turned to Zed and said, 'From now on, anybody caught eating the class goes straight out of the window.'" "Did this Julius Rodwinkle break any bones?" Lavender asked. "Only a few," Hortensia said. "You've got to remember that the Trunchbull once threw the hammer for Britain in the Olympics, so she's very proud of her right arm." "She's throwing the hammer?" Lavender asked. "The hammer," Hortensia said, "is actually like a ruddy great cannonball on the end of a long bit of wire, and the thrower whips it round and round on his or her head faster and faster, then lets it go. You have to be terrifically strong. The Trunchbull will throw anything around to keep her arm in, especially children." "Good heavens," Lavender said. "I once heard her say," Hortensia went on, "that a large boy is about the same weight as an Olympic hammer, and therefore he's very useful for practicing with." At this point something strange happened. The playground, which ought to have been filled with streaks and shining of children at play, all at once became silent as a grave. "Watch out," Hortensia whispered. Lavender Matilda and Lavender glanced round and saw the gigantic figure of Miss Trunchbull advancing through the crowd of boys and girls with menacing strides. The children threw back hastily to let her though their progress across the heathrow was like that of Moses going through the Red Sea when the waters parted. A formidable figure she was too, in her belty smock and green breeches. Below the knees her calf muscles stood out like grassroots inside her stockings. "Amanda Strip!" she was shouting. "You, Amanda Strip! Come here!" "Hold your hat," Hortensia whispered. "What's going to happen?" Matilda whispered back. "The idiot Amanda," Hortensia said. She had let her long hair grow even longer during the holes, and her mother was plaited into pigtails. Silly thing to do. "Why silly?" Matilda asked. "If there's one thing that Trunchbulls can't stand, it's pigtails," Hortensia said. Matilda and Lavender saw the giant in green breeches advancing upon a girl about 10 who had a pair of plaited golden pigtails hanging over her shoulders. Each pigtail has a blue satin robe at the end of each over her shoulders, and it all looked very pretty. The girl wearing the pigtails, Amanda Strip, with the expression on her face, was one you might find on the face of a person who is trapped in a small field with an immersed bull where is charging flat out towards her. The girl was glued to the spot, terror-struck, pop-eyed, quivering, know for certain that the day of judgment had come for her at last. Miss Trunchbull had now reached the beacon and stood towering over her. "I want those filthy pigtails before you came back to school tomorrow," she barked. "Chop them off and throw them in the dustbin. You understand?" Amanda, paralyzed by fright, managed to stutter. My mummy likes them. She pledged them for me every morning." "Your mummy's a tweet," Trunchbull bellowed. She pointed a finger of size of salami at the child's head and shouted, "You look like a rat with a tail coming out of its head." My mummy thinks I look lovely, Miss Trunchbull," Amanda stuttered, shaking like a black mange. "I don't give a thinker's toot your mummy thinks," the Trunchbull yelled. And with that she lunged forward and grabbed hold of Amanda's pigtails in her right fist and lifted the girl clear of the ground. When she started swinging her round and around her head, faster and faster, Amanda was screaming with blue murder, and the Trunchbull was yelling, "I'll give pigtails, you little rat!" "Shades of the Olympics," Hortensia murmured. "She's going to be spit on now, like she's throwing the hammer. 10 to 1 she's going to throw her." And now the Trunchbull was leaning backward against the weight of the whirling girl and preventing expertly on her toes, spinning round and around. And soon Amanda Strip was traveling so fast she became a blur. And suddenly a mighty grunt, the Trunchbull let go of the pigtails. Amanda was sailing like a rocket over a wire fence of the playground and high up into the sky. "Well thrown, sir!" someone shouted from across the playground, and Matilda, who was mesmerized by the whole crazy affair, saw Amanda Strip descansing in a long, graceful parabola on the playground field beyond. She landed on the grass and buzzed 3 times and finally came to rest. Then, amazingly, she sat up. She looked a trifle dazed. Who couldn't blame her? But after a minute or so she was on her feet again and turning back towards the playground. The Trunchbull stood on the playground dusting off her hands. "Not bad," she said, "considering a not strict training. Not bad at all." Then she strode away. "She's mad," Hortensia said. "But don't the parents complain?" Matilda asked. Would yours? Hortensia asked. I know mine wouldn't. She treats the mothers and fathers just like the same as the children, and they're all scared to death of her. I'll be seeing you sometime, you two. And with that, she sauntered away.